Hey friends, Jesus came to this earth to be the sacrifice for our sin, to make a way for us to have eternal life and relationship with God. But he also came to this earth to be an example for us, to teach us how to live. Shortly before he went to the cross, he had an intimate time with his disciples, sharing the Passover meal with them. But before the meal, he washed their feet. In those days, the people wore sandals and walked on dusty roads, so you can imagine how dirty their feet were. So foot washing was necessary. But it was the lowest task of a slave in their culture, not the task of the master. So why did Jesus wash the disciples' feet? Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and would return to God. Then it says, so he got up from the table and washed the disciples' feet. Let's look at the things that motivated Jesus to wash their feet. First, it says he knew that the Father had given him authority over everything. In human standards, having authority indicates position of power, not of service. But to Jesus, his authority meant he took responsibility for the people he was leading and was willing to humbly serve them. Next, this verse says that he had come from God and would return to God. Jesus knew who he was, where he came from, and where he was going, so he served. He was secure in his position in God, and that motivated him to serve people. Then after he had washed their feet, he asked them, "Do you understand what I was doing? You call me teacher and Lord, and you're right, because that's what I am. And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow, to do as I have done to you." So he clearly explained why he washed their feet. He asked them if they understood why he did it, and then he went on to answer the question. He did it to give us an example to follow. 1 Peter 2:21 says, "For you have been called for this purpose, since Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example for you to follow in his steps." So we are called to follow Christ's example in serving and laying down our lives for others. And we can only do that when our identity is firmly rooted in God. Then we can rely on his strength working in us to be able to serve others. So he's our example, but he is also the empowerment that we need to follow in his steps. Let's make an intentional decision to follow Jesus and his example.